There's emerging on the face of the earth a new human, an infinite human, and that infinite human is you. Join Elizabeth Monroy weekly for enlightening discussions, multi-dimensional journeys, profound meditations, and empowering visualizations as we co-create the new consciousness renaissance together with other blossoming infinite human beings who are shifting the old paradigms of our broken, fragmented, finite 3D Earth and alchemizing it into a more expansive, unified, loving, infinite reality by reclaiming their true divine, infinite power within as the co-creators of the new infinite Earth. Join us weekly for the Infinite Human Talk Show, hosted by Elizabeth Monroy.
Hello, my divine, infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And welcome to the Infinite Human Talk Show. I'm Elizabeth Monroy, and I'm your host. And today, what an amazing topic and a very divinely timely topic. We're talking about rewriting your life story, flipping the script, rewriting your life story to your heroic self or your infinite self. And this is such a golden window of opportunity we're in right now. Of course, if you're hearing this, whenever you're hearing it, it's divine timing for you because you were drawn to it. But if you're tuning in now, we've just gone through the most powerful Lion's Gate ever to hit this planet. And in fact, our whole time matrix is going through major shifts. And this is the golden opportunity to realign yourself with the divine, with divine infinite source, and leave all those old mind-controlled, debilitating, trauma, victim-based stories behind. And, it seems easy, but I know it can be very challenging. And I've certainly had my challenges. I've kind of listened, through the network, through the telepathy mails, the T-mails, the emails, the messages, and kind of, look through my crystal ball at the collective, especially the first wave of volunteers who are the founders and co-creators of the new Earth. And I've been, watching them. And, everyone is feeling it. I mean, I think everyone on the whole planet and animals and plants are all feeling this, but especially if you're the first wave, you're really getting shoved to, lots of downloads, lots of visions, lots of the wonderful energy to raise your frequency and to get you to step into what I call your soul mission. So now is a beautiful time to just break away from those old timelines, from any of those old stories that are still pulling you back to 3D Earth, and really make this quantum leap, and some of you, we're really energetically there. It's just we have to release all those mind control programs, and we will, because, the energies are demanding that right now. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm just going to inspire you to really start making, even if they're small, moment to moment decisions in the now, to really, I found for myself, there's been a lot of anxiety and a lot of, I guess, I'm kind of a perfectionist. And if you've read my book, The Infinite Human, I was like declared a 10, my father would always say, "Oh, you're perfect, which we all are perfect. But of course, now we're returning back to our perfect state, our perfection. We're remembering it. We're returning to it. We're realigning with it. And so it can be a little stressful because, I'm feeling like, oh my God, I have all these things to do. Oh my God, blah, 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 and getting all these visions and downloads. And how am I ever going to do that? But that's why staying in the moment is so important, and just really trusting and having that faith. And that's been challenging, for many of us. Plus, everything's coming up to be healed. It's right in your face. There's no running away from it anymore, even though I know we've all tried. So it's all happening. But it's a good thing, okay? So if you're just kind of tuning in, I'm just going to kind of give you a whole rundown on the story that we've been in. Basically, a 260 billion year story with our time matrix that kind of, we could call it almost an experiment. And we basically started to become invaded, and it was, we could say it's an experiment to see what it was like to fall, to live as far away from infinite God source. We're all infinite God source, so you can never, ever not be part of that, but to be away from it. And in The Infinite Human, my book, The Infinite Human, I start, the first chapter is a divine storyteller. And I say, we're all stories in the mind of God, and they're really, it's when you enter into the time matrix, you agree, you buy the ticket to be part of this illusion of time. And the illusion of time really is story, beginning, middle, and end, or a hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell put it. And we've all decided to experiment with what it felt like at some level. We may have come in for many reasons. Many of us were on a rescue mission, but we decided to come in, and we decided to learn what it was like to live away from the word of God or the vibration of God. So I talk about, the metaphor of a story being, closer to God's word or vibration or frequency, or away from it. And I think almost all of us, if you're listening to me, you can agree. I see you shaking your head that we've really this experiment has probably gone too far. I mean, the greed, the wars, the pedophilia, the child sacrifice, the trauma, the martyrdoms, everything that has been associated, and many of us have experienced on this planet. The bloodbaths just are not part of infinite God source worlds. That's not God source worlds. So we've learned what it's like, and many of us have held the Krystic path, so we've done our best to maintain that beam steering us back home. But when we went into failsafe in 2011, August this time, we started the correction, and we are now correcting. And even though I have on my book, 5D Earth, because so many people are talking about 5D, and I understand the mentality 3D, 5D to a higher dimension, but actually currently we're really not going that route. That's more kind of like a trap route. So I've kind of began with that, and I'm blending it into, we're moving into the, we're actually moving back to primordial Earth. Okay. And then we're moving on to, well, actually, there's so many different Earths, all right? And each one contains, and each platform on the Earth contains a different frequency. But we're moving up to the Arias, Earth, and the Aurora's Earth, and there's a lot of names for them. And if you're familiar with chaotic science, you can get into more detail with that. And I will address that in the future. But anyway, what we're doing is we're dumping, okay, our low frequencies. All right, we're changing our story. I call it, but all our old stories were based on a fallen, a fallen, let's just say, planet, even time matrix, okay, but a fallen system where everything was inverted. And I think most of and if you haven't read my book, I go through every system, how medicine now no longer heals, it's weaponized. Education doesn't teach, help you to think or empower your creativity. It mind controls you. How religion, gets in the way of your connection with infinite God source. And we're seeing that in all across the spectrum, more and more every day. It's coming to view, something we can't even turn away from, of how fallen, how inverted, how perverted all the institutions are, all of our belief systems, actually. And at first, it's kind of hard, but now we're to the point where we're really being pushed to step out, put our second step into, I know many of you call it 5D, but let's just say the higher dimensions. Okay. Let's say the new Earth, the new infinite Earth for now. So we're being asked to step onto the new infinite Earth, the new Crystalla spiral timeline. And the good news is we're getting so much help, because actually that we've talked a lot about the Fibonacci or the 3D timeline, the fallen Metatronic reversal timeline. That now the Metatronic seed that has been fueling that is dissolving. It's dissolving through this Lion's Gate. And that's part of the the crazy frequencies. I mean, the frequencies have been so high and they've stayed so high. I don't know about you, but I mean, sleeping, like what, eating, I've just been running around like crazy. But, today I feel a little bit of a lull. So, it's time, and we're going to start experiencing that. So now we can start integrating all these frequencies and kind of making sense of them and bleeding them into our lives, because you are so very important. Yes, you are so important, because as you change your story, okay, you lower your frequencies. I'm sorry, you drop your frequencies, the low frequencies. You just purge them. And a lot of you are purging them with the crying that you may be feeling, the sorrow, the anxiety, the fears, the anger. A lot of you are going through that still. And let those feelings, you have to feel to heal, so let them come out. And then you're going to allow, you're going to release that container of dirty water and let these higher frequencies come in and fill you up. And that will bring you up to these higher frequency earths. Okay. So you will be on the earth of your frequency. And, there's many different platforms on the ascending earths. All right. We'll just say the ascending earths. And so you don't want to stay caught in the net earth, the gone fall systems, because it's just, they're going to get worse and worse and worse. And this energy thrust is here to motivate you to just leave all those stories, because they keep their triggers, they keep pulling you back to the old timelines. So you want to step your feet fully and completely onto the new timeline, because you have a very important soul mission. And we'll get into that later, but you can't begin, you can do some of the stuff on your soul mission. Many of you are, but you're going to be, so much more of you will come through. So many more of your identity, so much more of your infiniteness will come through, so you'll be able to do what you came here to do. So much more of your multidimensional nature, because much of your work is multidimensional and it's not traditional. It's not going to fit into the, doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, pigeonholes. You're going to come up with something that's totally unique and totally original to you. And yes, you may, and there is that fear there, I know, because in my own community, I'm walking around, people, they already think I'm crazy, but we are going to probably look crazy, because in an insane asylum, it is the same people that look crazy. And we're actually going to be returning back to sanity as we follow our intuition and have the courage to step out and to do what we came here to do. Okay. So with that said, let's just look here. So that's what this energy boost is about. And like I said, this window of time is very, very powerful right now. As soon as you can, if you can just start doing things differently start putting priorities on what you want. Do you want to be peaceful? Do you want to be loving to yourself? Do you want to be abundant? Do you want to be, with your tribe, with your soul tribe? Do you want to find them? Do you want to start living your passions and following your passions? Start asking yourself some questions. Now, I'm doing a workshop currently, and we have some amazing women in there. They're just really pushing it. They are just so incredible. They're all inspiring. And we're using my workbook that I created. This is available on Amazon, but it's, like I said, 167 pages of questions, and it gives you space to write in them. But that will help you too. And if you don't want to buy it on Amazon, because I don't make any money off of that, but you can download it on my website. I think it's $9, and just, scribble on it or get a journal. But it's a good time to journal. It's a good time to ask yourself, to get clarity, to write down any visions that are coming through. And many of you, and myself included, are finding like people have just disappeared out of your life. Maybe good friends even. You just, let them go. They're clearing space, and you may find yourself alone for a while, isolated. And that's fine, because it's giving you time to really tune inward and find out who you are. And I'll tell you a little a little secret about this. It's actually, you don't really have to define yourself. Mostly you have to remember, because in the highest level, before the fall, you were divine, you were angelic, you were infinite. And maybe you had flowers on your hair and flew around with beautiful plasma wings, and whatever form you took, because there are many of yous, and that's what you want to embody now. You want to bring that back, and that's the whole you. And the heroic you is the one that brings in all of these alternative identities, or many people call them past lives, that you are healing and reintegrating. So they're not fragmented pieces of your soul that keep pulling you back into trauma, triggering you and pulling you back onto the old timelines. Because the truth is that whole Fibonacci trauma is on a false timeline. It's on an artificial AI loop, and it never really happened. So as soon as you heal it, you may have learned, you may gain wisdom from it. You may have memories like, I don't know, I don't want to go down there again. But they're all rich, beautiful memories that have made you who you are, because you are the highest version of yourself, but yet with the knowledge, or what Joseph Campbell refers to, the elixir of life, the reward from the journey. And the journey is what we're all on. We're always on a journey, and we're either creating a tragedy for ourselves, which means we're going fall, and we're going more and more fall, because we're succumbing to the flaws within inside ourselves. We're not healing things. We're allowing, our hurts, our fears, our sorrow, our grief to take hold of us, or we take command of all of ourselves, and we become whole, and we become holy. And that's the smiling face of the masks. That's the comedy. Okay. So tragedy, comedy, the dualistic yin yang overlay. But when we can heal that and bring it together, we're actually in the magic triangle of the higher, beyond the dualistic realms. And we're actually returning as just a wiser, angelic, divine, infinite human being. But we're tapping into the power. Our power source has been cut off, and that's infinite human, the infinite source. All right. So let's see here. I guess the most important thing I can say is that how important it is to do this, especially right now. And the reason is that as you embody these higher frequencies in the infinite God source, as you move through your intuition, as you start to have the courage to follow your bliss, all right, first of all, you're creating your own world, because you have your own Huva body. You are your own universe. So whatever you believe is going to happen, you draw to yourself. Okay. So you are creating your own reality. But as you do that, you will also interface with others. And this is the collective of us that chose to come here to be the change, to do this. And as we all interface, then we create a whole new culture, economy, art forms, crafts forms, educational platforms, ways to come together. And we begin to remember the future, remember the past. And I've been spending a lot of time, because like I said, everything's inverted. So if you look around, who's in charge of 3D Earth? Well, it's the masculine, the dark masculine, the patriarchs. And underneath my feet here in Sicily, I've been walking and going through all the goddess temples that have been torn a bit torn to pieces in rubble, and all the statues that have been smashed. And it's the goddesses rising, the goddess within us, the goddess who maintained our earths in beautiful, harmony with their toning and with their movements. And so this is the most important thing, is that the women, the ones who have the magnetic stronger Merkaba of the magnetic, identify more with that. I mean, we're all both masculine, feminine, electrical, magnetic, but the embodiment of the female. And we are also reconnecting with Divine Mother, our eternal mother. So we're a channel for her love to return to this world, to heal it. And we're coming back to love-based everything, communication, love-based exchange of energy, love-based businesses, love-based relationships. Everything's coming from the heart now, but connected to the brain. But as this before, it was just, left brain, this is the way it works. And we severed that connection, of course, and the Divine Mother was cut out of the equation. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And I think it's the women have been the most traumatized. If you look at our hidden history, or even in our history, I mean, you can look at the truth behind all the Spanish Inquisitions and the witch trials that happened. They were not witches. They were not evil. The ones who were doing the acts were the evil ones. I think most people are beginning to not only know that, but remember it. Sorry, that brings up memories of, because I have a lot of neck problems still. I'm getting a lot better, but being hung, of being in vices for speaking out. Mostly they were women who used their voice, and I've had a lot of thyroid issues. And, so a lot of women have thyroid issues. I know my mother did. And most of the women who were in the mental institutions, in the past, were there because of the thyroid, and the thyroid's been tampered with because it controls the hormones, and, it can literally drive you insane when it's out of sync, which it usually is. And especially now with all the radiation and the EMF waves, going around the planet, it's an epidemic. But so that's so the women have been traumatized, have been debilitated, disabled, hijacked, cut off, from their source, eternal mother. And so this is a little bit harder of a journey because there's a lot of trauma. And in fact, I think I was going to have Mary on here, and she was having a lot of things come up for her. But I think in the future we will address that. And I'm also going to do a course, like we're doing right now, Rewrite Your Life Story to Your Heroic Journey. I'm going to do a course solely on the woman womb, because we were going to talk about it this time, but it's just so deep. There's so much that was done purposely to scar and mar and disable and dispower and victimize the female, because we live in a magnetic universe. All right. There's a parallel Earth that's electric, but our Earth is magnetic. And so it's the divine feminine that has the power. And what does it do? It attracts. And that's what we need to get working again. Okay. We need to just remove all those overlays, all those fragmented pieces of ourselves. We need to heal it, so we can fully function, because it's our job to step out, because that's part of the cure for the planet, is to step out and to start, living it, being the embodiment of love, of the eternal mother, and moving in the world with very strong strength, kind of like the Wonder Woman, with the boundaries, with the power that we have, but at the same time being of the heart and being loving, and know that sometimes you need to do tough love. So and we're going to have to start moving out of the home and hearth, which has been our domain, and we've been, very comfortable there. It's been a safe haven for us, and we've done a lot, by raising generations of people, and kind of as a lunar female, a reflection of the male light, manipulating the, husbands and sons, but that's over. Okay. That's not how we're moving anymore. We're stepping out, and we're being an influence with love, and we're sending out our magnetic intentions from Infinite God Source to the electrical males, who will carry out thy will. So that's how we're moving. And so how do you do that? Okay, you're like, well, that sounds really good in theory, but what does that mean in everyday life? So, well, let's just think about that for a minute. Okay, so first of all, what if, okay, you really started to find out what your passions were? You gave yourself, first of all, permission and I do soul mission readings to help people with that too. But you can just start giving yourself, first of all, permission to look there, because many people especially women, are terrified to look there. They think to make money they have to be like the men and go out and do these kinds of jobs, and fit into the system. Well, this is not the time to fit into the system, because the system is breaking down, and I think most people can see that. And it's costing what you make in most of the corporate jobs now, even, is getting, the work is so huge, especially for women, and they get paid so little. And then they have to come home, and many of them are single parents, have to take care of the whole family, and they can't even, the cost of living, especially in the US, is incredible. So things are really, really bad right now, but they're to get you to start taking a moment to find out what it is you love and what you're really good at, because you're good at what you love. It's that simple. If you love something, you're great at it, because you put all that loving energy into it. And because you put so much energy, you're only going to get better at it. So you have to really start respecting and loving and valuing yourself, because we've been so degraded, especially the female. Well, you're good for raising children, cleaning the house, that's it. Well, yes, of course you are good at that, but you are looking pretty, being arm candy. But it's time to really be you to the full, or be beautiful, to be beautiful. And that's the true meaning of beautiful. Be you to the full. And that's what we're doing now. It's scary, because we have to overcome all this trauma of all our past lives or alternative identities, because every time in his Tori, the corrupted masculine history of the planet. Every time a woman, danced under the moon, naked, barefoot, if she was a witch and she was burnt or hung or whatever, or, spoke out against her husband, or spoke up to her husband, or out in the public, she was, arrested, or, put to death, or put on display, or even traveling around on her own. I mean, that was impossible. You needed to have an escort, because you would be raped. You would be fair game. Oh, there's a woman undefended. So I mean, this is the history we've come through. So, and many of us have suffered this. So we have this hidden shadow, which we really have to start looking at and purging. And I think that's, for me, with some of the anxiety. And many of you may be feeling this anxiety, because we're getting the downloads and the pushes, and yes, you can do it. Yes, get out there. Yes, be yourself. Get out there as your authentic self. And then we're having the memories that flood back in. Yes, but every time I did that, I was whacked, killed, raped, burned, hung, stoned, drowned, so many times. And and those are, with these frequencies, they're coming out and they're purging. So they're coming out, which is a good thing, and they're coming out for good. Well, that said, we're going to have to just, like I said, that goes back to being in the now moment, and getting a hold of, that's the heart, but you also have to get a hold of your thoughts. So your thoughts don't start going out there creating this trauma, recreating the past, recreating the old stories. Because that's what this whole week right now, we're in this corridor where to the end, so about the 22nd of August, I would say, where you really can start putting a footprint, laying down the foundation of your new you, your new life, what you want to create, what you want to be like, and just step by step by step in the now moment, beginning to crystallize this inside of you. and in the external world around you. And you will find help. You will see that people will appear or disappear. I think a lot of disappearing is going to happen. You may even be getting fired or upgraded, just depending on, because you're emanating another frequency. So it's either going to be noticed, and you're going to be positioned where you're supposed to be, or you may be, in order to be positioned where you're supposed to be, you may have to be dispositioned from where you are right now. You may be moving, 'cause a huge shift has occurred. Okay, so you may be moving house, you may be moving cities, you may be moving countries, and just I know it's happening very fast too. So in many ways, it is a bit terrorizing because it's just the energy is so powerfully strong, and it's really pushing you. It's no longer that whisper in your ear, the niggle, the being guided. It's like, get out now. So and it's internal. It's an internal energy that just is kind of restless because it's looking for its place, and your job is to find that place. And it's an easy job if you can break through the programming of you're not worthy. I can't, the fear of, oh no, if I do that, I'll get noticed and I'll get slapped down, I'll get, killed or hurt or, bullied, beat up on. You have to give up the fear of caring what other people think about you, because the people that are judging you are probably not part of your tribe anymore. And you know what? Don't even put your focus there, because this is where your thoughts are becoming things. And as you raise in your frequency, from your lips to God's ear, that's what's been coming for me, from your lips to God's ear, really, literally, anything you ask for, anything you focus on will manifest. So be wise in what you're focusing on, because the problem, and everyone's like, oh, the secret, or a manifestation, I tried that, it never worked. Well, yeah, of course it didn't, because the 10% of you that's conscious is thinking, oh, I'd like to, blah, 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 do this kind of job. I'd like to, whatever, be an artist or something. 90%, which is your subconscious, it's 90% of your conscious, is full of all these traumas and doubts and fears and unworthiness, and it's chattering away, the monkey mind that's pulling you off course. You set your course straight with breathing deeply, your affirmations in the morning, your vision boards, all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And then you chatter it away like, oh, wait, I can't, the phone, I can't answer that. I can't do, oh no, I can't. So I know, I hear you. I feel you. It's a dilemma, because we are, like I said, we've gone through all these eons of program mind control. It's so ingrained on this false timeline, in this false reality, with this, Metatronic veil over our planet and over our faces. And we've just been responding, to what we've been being fed in our subconscious, wake up, go to work, consume, die, or whatever David Icke says, or breed and find that man to take care of you, and all these programs. Oh, you're not worthy, you can't do that, nobody in our family does that. I mean, there's so many beliefs, and they're coming up for you right now to go through, to let go of. All right, it's all about purging those, because it's going to be so freeing, and we're getting the energy to do that because so much, but because of the fail safe, now we're going from this experimental way off course to course correction. So just it's a lot of faith, and it's a lot of in the moment, because if you get all heady about, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do tomorrow? And will I be able to? And I can go there, but what I keep getting, and the guidance I'm getting, and I want to share, because I think if you're listening to me, you need to hear this, really that moment, breathing and being in that moment, and using that to heal yourself, using that to let go, and using that breath to redirect your focus, because your focus is everything, right? Thought directs energy. Thought directs energy. Thought directs energy. It's so powerful. And we haven't had the focused thoughts. So this is all about learning to focus on what you want to create and asking for help. That's fine. But you came here to do this. And you didn't come here to be like everybody else. No. And it's sometimes it's lonely at the top when you start to move away from, the community or people that you felt comfortable with. You're not going to feel comfortable with them anymore. There is no more comfort, There's no bathroom. But the point is, yes, of course there is, but and you can take rest breaks, but the pressure's on, the heat is on, because we're at such a crucial moment. Because let's just, the second part of this, and yeah, we're about there, is what kind of world do you want to create? So could you imagine? I mean, there are these future worlds. Like I said, there are many, many different Earths. There's many different platforms on the different Earths. So just depending on your frequency, that's kind of what Eartha, you're tuning into. And that's why it's really important to really let her rip, let the highest frequencies go through. Let yourself experience joy. Let yourself experience laughter. Let yourself experience bliss and your passions, doing things that keep you in the zone when you're moving. Okay. And so, Araya, okay. I just got this from dear Olivia. She did a wonderful thing. But Uriah Earth, okay, is the highest emanation, and then Uriah Earth is the primordial Earth that never changes. This always holds the divine blueprint or template, and then that's one of the highest emanations of our Earth, Uriah Earth, and then there's several different Earths. So we can kind of use that to beam steer ourselves too, and just let that, many of you have visions of it. I've been wearing pink a lot lately, and in fact, one of the pictures of the primordial Earth is very pink. In fact, I know that some of you are on the podcast, but that's what I took for. So that she had on her presentation. We'll have her back on. She's so wonderful. But so let the colors come through. Have the courage to be different. Everyone comes up to me and they want to take. First, they all stared at me in my little Sicilian village. Now they all want to take a picture with me. The women are like, oh, "You've got so much." Well, they say balls here, but cojones or palle. But you have a lot of nerve, and I have been having a lot of anxiety, but I still do it. And courage is being. If you're being fearful, but going ahead and doing it. And the more I do it, the more I become at home in my own skin, and the more I become at home with my authentic self, and the more I follow my passion, the more I paint that painting, the more I, make that, broadcast, or the more I tone those tones, or sing that song, the more I dance, and the more I just loosen up and let the creativity flow, the better I feel, the more healed I feel, the more alive I feel, and the more it comes. It just keeps moving through. So I think, many of you have been isolated and cocooned for a very long time, myself included. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, but I started to love it. And many of you love it. You love it, being by yourself. And that's beautiful, very powerful place. And that's essential. You have to be really okay being, in love with yourself enough to just stay with you. And if you have a dog, you're really lucky, or a cat or a horse. But, that's really, really powerful. And it's a very important phase. So if you're in that hermitage phase, that's fine. But I'm going to say what the next phase, and what I think many of us are getting right now, is we're getting pushed to be out in the world, even the 3D world, highly visible, but as our authentic selves, not fitting in. Like me walking around in pink, wearing flowers in my hair, and just having fun, dancing in the streets and singing and just being what probably looks like crazy, insane. But you know what? The more you do it, the more you're going to find your tribe. And then the more you start really following your passions, these creative urges that you've had, the more your talents are going to start developing, and you're going to find that people want what you have. Yeah, it sounds so crazy, right? Wow, people want what I have. Because for so long, you go for a job application or whatever, like, well, I don't know, I mean, what did you, I, oh my God, I went on some job applications to be a teacher, and I'd written my book, The Magical Mist, and people brought me there just to yell at me because no, you can't just encourage children's creativity. So I think we've all been through that. We've paid our dues. We've been through the mill with that. You know what? Who cares? Those people, they're miserable and they're just falling. They're on a downward spiral if they're sticking on it. Or right now they're like, oh my God, my whole world's turning upside down. So the world needs you. And many of these people who laughed, at you or whatever, who criticized you, bullied you, if you have the compassion and the softness in your heart to still remain open to them, you can, you will be there for them because you are the leaders who create more leaders. Okay. We're doing it different now. We're creating more leaders. So could you imagine? All right. So we're going to get into a world. Let's just start with the basic world, like in small communities. I know in America it's harder because the corporations are incredible there. I mean, like I said, I can't even go to America right now because it's like everything is a corporation. There are hardly any mom and pop places left. But okay, I'll just say, so you guys need to work on that because let's imagine communities like here in Castellamare de Golfo, where I'm in Scopella, they're all family businesses, everything except a gas station and a supermarket, but you can still live without even doing that because there's a lot of vegetable stands, bakeries and individual produce places and stuff. So the point is, we'll go back to community. And let's say, what if we stopped giving our money to these corporations that are heartless, that don't care about us? I mean, there's some good corporations, but I'm talking about ones that are just greedy. They're based on greed and, whatever. And we started, an exchange of energy and supporting these heart-based businesses in our community. And what if everyone started following their passions? And I read some tarot for a gal the other day. I said, "Oh my God, you're going to have a child. I see it right here, and you're going to. I see you starting your own little, kind of child activity." And then I met a girl who was doing that here. It was amazing. She said, "We do it outside all year, and the kids are like 2-3 years old, and we just walk in nature." She said, it's all about nature, and nature's the key to everything," which I agree because the highest frequencies are coming from nature, and we're still out where there's beautiful nature, and that we don't have the huge hi-fi OG towers like you guys have in the States or wherever. But if you can get out in nature, that's great. But even in your community, if you can start doing what you love to do, and there's going to be a need for it, whether it's teaching children, or organizing homeschooling, or growing wonderful fresh fruits and vegetables and produces, or creating a restaurant that serves really great healthy food and sells crystals too. I went to a place like that back when I was back in Kentucky, like every day, I went there and ate, and they were doing a booming business. Everyone wanted to hang out in that high frequency vibe. It's a lavender farm, and it was amazing. People love places like that. We need places like that. We need people to create sacred spaces like that, or whatever your calling is. As creating sacred sciatic, whatever it's called, dancing or drumming, or just everyday things that we need. Following arts, creating crafting beautiful furniture and wonderful clothing. I mean, if you build it, they will come. If you follow your dream, you will have people coming to you, and you will be experiencing true abundance. That is the way, that is one of the cures for this world. And when I say abundance, okay, because you've been brainwashed, okay, mind controlled to believe, abundance is having a lot of money. Okay, first of all, what is money? Like there's crypto, or your money's all online. I mean, your banks are online. I mean, really, if you can get cash, that's great. Hold on to that cash. I believe in keeping that circulated, or because because the truth is, abundance is exchange of energy. You have something, that I want. I have something you want. We exchange, and money just became the symbol of it. But the parasites got in the middle of it, so they control well, that's a whole nother chapter, but I think most people know about the black magic Babylonian system and the banks controlling the currency, the whole maritime law of banks and currency, banks and current. So they got their hands in there, so they control it, so they have it all, and they get their part of it. So what if we could just go back to simple communities, which happens here where I live. They keep their cash. They have for the bank, for the government, they give themselves their little kind of like piso or whatever that they used to pay, like to the mafia bosses or something. They have it in the bank. They pay the taxes on a portion of it, and then they circulate cash. This paper could be anything, could be coins, could be beads, but it circulates among the people. I give this to you, you give this to me. It could be a bottle of olive oil for a bottle of for a loaf of bread or whatever. But it's this giving, and when you passionate about what you do, you're going to serve up the highest essence. It's going to bring you so much joy to show up and to do your thing. You won't even call it work, because it'll actually be, releasing a beautiful part of yourself. It'll be tuning into your multidimensional nature that you will be channeling through this energy through you, and it will feed you. It'll feed you, so you'll feel very wealthy because you've been fed in the act of giving forth, of sharing from your soul. And the people around you will feel fed because they got, whether it was a beautiful meal that you cooked, or a wonderful course that you did, or a great meditation, or, a beautiful event, or artistic painting, whatever it is, you've created something from the higher frequencies from your soul that is inspiring, and you've put it out in the world for everyone to tune into, to be inspired by, to be fed from, but even not parasitically, because they're not, that's a different thing. Parasites take and draw your blood from you and suck you dry, whereas exchange of energy is even exchange. So you get something that you wanted, and I have something I wanted, and we both, it's a win-win situation, and that's abundance. So what if we lived in communities like that, where everyone stopped, oh, hi, how are you, and they talk to each other, spend a lot of time, and oh yeah, oh, can I buy that, thank you. I do that here now. Go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist is, she's an angel. Her name's Angela. She's so wonderful. She saved my life a lot of times. And I'll buy a lot of, holistic stuff there, because they don't, do that. And it's her family. It's hers. She owns it, or I'll go somewhere else and it's theirs. So, every time some money comes out of my pocket, it goes into theirs, and vice versa. So we need to get back to that community. That's why they keep trying to get you online. They want everything online. They want everything one world order. They want, everything outside of the communities, and not talking to each other and eyeballing, eye and eye, window to the soul, eyeball to eyeball, and having experience with each other. So, and now I'm just going to wrap this up too. But as far as the internet is concerned, though, if many of you know me, I kind of like, and I wrote in the Pathway Home, these communities are the future. And, but, we're not quite there yet. I found out to just, go out, away from the world and live out in these new earth communities, because even if you get, there's really no out from anywhere, you know. I mean, you can get farther away from the shade of the hi-fi OG tree. And I felt wonderful this winter when I went down to a little place out in the jungle. But you know, you still have people around you. You know, you have that money thing. You have you know, a lot of people who feel poor. They think they're poor, and then they see you. They think you're wealthy. You know, you have this, you know, this stealing and parasiting, and you have all that going on. And until we clear ourselves enough as to become the highest version of ourselves, and we don't have any baggage, and we can download these frequencies and give them forth very purely to out there to our community. And we really need to blend with the community, you know. And I sometimes have trouble with that, but you know, so I think we will have hubs that will start of high frequency places, but you know, there'll be people on different levels. You know, there'll be the leaders, and then there'll be those, you know, the first wave, and then we'll have second wave and third wave. So we need to be all inclusive and make sure we can communicate and talk at whoever level we can talk at, you know, because I'll go to people and spend time, and I'll just be loving with them, you know, whether we're talking about vegetables or you know, or hair, or you know, the latest makeup, you know, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm there with the high frequencies, and they pick up those codes from you just by being in your aura. You know, you are radiating out those plasma frequencies and bathing that area and the people around you. And some of them might not like it at first, and they'll distance themselves from you because they're not ready to intake it. Okay, but and that's the way, by being out there in the world, by blending with people. And the same thing with the internet, okay? Because we talked a little bit about the dark flowering that is going on through the internet. There's a lot of stuff going on, which means, bright flowers that we are, we need to, and I've been called and shoved to just pour myself onto the internet and learn this AI and transmute it, you know, and make it bend to my will, which is thy will, which is infinite God source will. So we, as the holders of the higher frequencies, are going to be, we're going to put our frequency everywhere. We're going to put it into the tech. We're going to put it into the AI chats. We're going to put it into everything. Are we going to let it control us? No. Are we going to let it lead us? No. Is it going to serve us? Yes, because it is there to serve us. So that is the difference, because as you more and more, and then you may need to just unplug for a long time, you know, and make sure there's a balance. Make sure you are in nature. You can live in nature. You're not going to a cubicle, and then you can go, you know, use the AI, because that is the way we're reaching so many people. Now it's going to first happen in this sacred cyberspace that we're creating, and then it'll bleed out, you know, more and more into the physical and into communities. But you know, we're in a process right now. So that's important, and you know, love it, you know, love it, because we're rising above this duality. I felt there's a phase where you need to like discern, so you don't blindly follow something. But you know, as you start to totally own who you are, and as you own your multidimensional infinite nature, and you own your passions, and you know, you look at your flaws and defects and you just love them into wholeness, then you have the power and you have the connection. And no matter what you touch, everything, there's not any black or white, bad or good. There's no yin yang overlays anymore, because you are alchemizing everything with your loving high rainbow plasma frequencies that you are going to pour into everything. So I hope this has been helpful, and I appreciate you tuning in. And everything's on my website, www.infinitehuman.com. And and please, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and share it if you can, because I have had people say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad, whatever, I took this course because I saw one of your videos." I'm like, wow, that's a miracle, because you wouldn't believe what they've been doing. Like I said, pour in the positive, the high frequencies, through the camera and into the internet. Well, they've come up, there's another Infinite Human talk show, but by a woman who's like a coach. I mean, it has nothing to do with being infinite. And they've got all these infinitehuman.com websites, and they've got they've been taking me off of a lot of the platforms. I had to reattach myself onto whatever Spotify or Apple podcasts, over and over and over again, because I keep getting like kicked out of the system. So I'm not going to create that for myself anymore, because I feel like we've gone through a pass with that. But so some people do need to hear this. It's not for everybody, but some of my words may be a catalyst to you who are listening. I hope they are, and an inspiration to get your arse in gear and get busy and get out that door and start sharing yourself, sharing your talents, sharing your gifts, and leave behind those old stories of victimhood and become the victor, the champion, the embodiment of love and divine infinite source, walking our earth. And that's my message for today. I think that pretty much sums it up. So thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful infinite week. And I should be with you next week. I'm going to have some great guests coming on here too very soon. All right. So use this time in this window to rewrite your life story and become the ultimate infinite you. Ciao for now.